Duty howdy everyone, Wamboo here, and welcome to So Bad It's Good, or So Big for short. Now, I'm sure So Bad It's Good is a title we've all heard before, especially in the context of gaming. There's the type of bad where something is just kind of boring and not very fun, and then there's something so hilariously awful that it just needs to be witnessed by everyone. And that's what we're going to talk about on this show. Each episode, I'll bring games, good or mostly bad, and discuss whether or not they can work on the merits of being wonderfully awful. So for our first episode, I decided to dive into the deep, dark abyss of gaming that is licensed games, and I brought back with me this little gem, NCIS. Based on the TV series. I don't think that's the full title, but that's what it says on the box. Before we really get into this, I should say that I haven't actually seen the NCIS show before. I heard pretty good things about the story and characters, but all I actually know from it is the scene where two people operate one keyboard for double the hacking speed.
It's moving too fast.
Oh, this is not good. We're using our connection to the APHIS database.
Clearly, I'm in for a treat. So let's talk about our little contestant here for a second. Why is NCIS on this show? That shouldn't be too hard to figure out. So first off, if you're a fan of NCIS and you just absolutely love its actors, you're in for a disappointment, because only one of the actors from the show is reprising their role for the game. Almost all the other characters are done by people with little to no voice acting experience, and man, it shows.
Hey, McGeek, who sent Ziva the flowers?
Jealous?
Jealous? Me? No, of course not.
You sure? Because you sound jealous.
I'm just surprised someone would send Ziva flowers. That's all.
I don't even know if it's that the voices are that bad. It's just that these actors have little to no charisma. Either that or their direction is just terrible. This guy right here sounds like a typical comic relief character with a snippy attitude and a stupid accent.
Hooligans? Wow, that's pretty strong language. You might want to watch yourself there.
Meanwhile, this guy, who I guess is supposed to be the boss, tries to sound in charge by talking in a slightly loud monotone.
When you're done reminiscing, Denozo, we got bad guys to catch. McGee, what do you got?
Not that I'm one to talk exactly, but that's why I'm not the one voice acting in a video game. And then there's this girl, and I have no idea what she's doing.
It does not matter, Tony. I did not expect anything.
I'm not entirely convinced that she isn't voiced by Microsoft Mary.
I really did get you something.
My father was killed by ninjas.
Honestly, that's all I really have to go by in terms of characters, since all of their personalities are pretty one-note. I guess there's also their physical appearances, and while just about all the characters look pretty robotic, I have to note that this guy's mouth is especially horrifying. To those of you who have watched the show, was this character played by the ghost of L. Ron Hubbard? Not knowing most of these characters makes it especially tough to get into, since the game seems to assume most people know the source material already, so there's no real introduction to any of the characters and no one gets any development. In fact, most of the dialogue interactions between the main cast in this game is totally inconsequential. There's kind of an overarching story in the game, but most of the time the characters are busy distracting us with their lame attempts at being funny.
Oh, my stomach. Not liking that much coffee.
Well, glad to see you're washing it down with more fucking coffee! You know, let's play a little game here, actually. I'm going to play a random scene, and I want you guys to try and guess the significance of it within the game. Ready? Here it is.
Like you're one to talk. You don't even drink real coffee, just that little soft drink. I'd like to see you try to switch to a real man's brew. Then we'll see who's laughing.
You know, Tony, there's actually more caffeine in Caf-Pow per ounce than in your typical cup of coffee. In fact, even with the latest coffee brewing technology, there is no way, either physical or chemical, to squeeze that much caffeine out of a coffee bean.
You'd have to artificially add caffeine to reach the same levels, and that's not even counting the ginseng, vitamin B, and other stimulants in Caf-Pow.
Very nice, McGee.
Got an answer? Well, believe it or not, this is the epilogue to one of the major murder cases in the game. And for the record, no, we don't find out what happened to the rest of the characters involved. It just ends on this. And this is how most of the cutscenes are. Heck, sometimes the game doesn't even bother keeping continuity between the cutscenes and the gameplay.
You are one lucky man, McGee.
Yes, he is. He was nearly killed by a bombing.
I'm not talking about the bombing.
You are not?
You're not?
No, the crutches. Ladies love a man on crutches.
And yet, what do we see as soon as the cutscene ends? Well, glad to see he healed that off pretty quick. Must have had one of those instant healing crutches I keep hearing about. Honestly, if the game can't be bothered to try and invest the player in its own story, I think I'm done talking about it, so let's move on to gameplay instead. So first off, we have the investigations, in which the NPCs do the actual investigating, while you act as the guy who goes around taking pictures of everything. Yeah, you may need to move the occasional crate or climb over something, but since there's no actual way to lose, then there really isn't much to it. In fact, I kinda wish there was a way to fail. Could you imagine if my character somehow died while moving a dresser? That'd be hilarious. Another thing we get to do is examine dead bodies. Once again, all we're actually doing is taking pictures. Nothing new, and hell, these parts don't even happen that often, so that's all I have to say about that. What does happen often, though, are the bits with this guy and his computer, where he gets to do background checks on people and process different pieces of evidence. It usually tends to start off with some dumb, easy-peasy hacking minigame that can occasionally be a little tricky, but it just resets if you fuck up anyway. After that, you have to sift through some files and find the ones that relate to your case. This part is insultingly easy. Not only is the evidence you need always highlighted in yellow, but the evidence you don't need will tell you that you don't need it. There's no way to lose this. Other times, instead of doing background checks, you have to track suspects via satellite, and trust me, it isn't nearly as exciting as it sounds. There's also this girl who gets the job of actually studying the evidence by analyzing fingerprints and bullet patterns and whatnot. This would be maybe a little interesting if they didn't all boil down to simple matching games. Aside from that, there's also, and I'm not kidding here, sections where you have to press buttons to remove tape. Why is there sections where you have to press buttons to remove tape? I have no idea. This is NCIS the video game, where actual crime solving is about as important as how much caffeine is in a fucking soft drink. Speaking of which, you may have noticed that these parts, along with the computer section from earlier, actually has a live system, represented on the top right of the screen by that soft drink I mentioned mere seconds ago. If you mess up, your character drinks a cup of Caf-Pow, and if they drink too much Caf-Pow, they go into cardiac arrest and die. I'm just kidding, fucking nothing happens! This game actually just puts you right back to where you were, and absolutely no progress is lost. This whole live system is pointless. How do you even fuck up your game's definition of punishment that badly? Even some of the worst games in history at least understand that when a player does poorly, you aren't supposed to just let them proceed anyway. And speaking of pointless mechanics, this game also has interrogation segments with QuickTime events. Except in this case, it's more like time events, because 1, it's the same button prompt every time, and 2, it stays on screen for a good 10 seconds. Unless you're dead, I think your reaction time will be more than fast enough. To be fair, though, these segments do have one of the only sort of entertaining parts in the game, where some of the button prompts require you to present evidence to contradict the person you're questioning. I mean, it's not great fun, mind you, but it's the only part that actually kind of vaguely resembles an actually good game. Now, notice I said it was one of the only entertaining parts, and that's because the other is a funny little thing called the deduction board. And let me tell ya, this guy right here loves the deduction board. Half his lines in the game are about the deduction board.
Let's go to the deduction board.
Yeah, I want you to do a deduction board. Deduction board.
Deduction board. Deduction board. Put it on the deduction board. Come on, Duck. Deduction board.
Someone who watched the show, did this guy have a romance with the deduction board?
Let's do a deduction board.
Actually, don't answer that. I'm pretty sure that line just confirmed it for me. The deduction board may just be the most entertaining part of this game, if for all the wrong reasons. The point is that you're supposed to make the connections between the pieces of evidence you've gathered thus far, and you'll know what the connection is because it'll be the only option that doesn't sound totally ridiculous. How do these two pieces of evidence fit together? Simple. Atlantic City is a long way from Dubai. Obviously. And that about covers it. That's NCIS. So, just to recap, here's a list of what we've got. Bad voice acting, uninteresting characters, uninteresting story, hand-holding, and pointless mechanics. So, that's what we have, and with all that said, is this game bad enough to be any good? No. No, it isn't. It's the first episode, and I reviewed a regular bad game. I lied to you all. NCIS, for the most part, is a very safe and functional game. It's not broken at all. No, it's incompetent in all the not very fun ways. Think about any so bad it's good game or movie or show or whatever. Most of the time, you can tell that they were going for something strong, but ended up crashing and burning in the silliest way possible. NCIS didn't go for something big and failed. It shot for the bottom of the barrel, and that's exactly where it is. It doesn't feel like something that was meant to be interesting. It feels like it was meant to cash in on the show. You see the name NCIS, if you're gullible you buy it, play it, realize it sucks, and then move on with your life. It's not bad because it's totally ridiculous and broken, it's bad because it feels like it's just in the wrong medium entirely. Which it pretty much is. I'm Wamboo, and this has been So Bad It's Good, or in this game's case, just plain bad, and that's why it gets to die!
Running out of time. I'll do it my way.